Jake's sneakers scuffed the pavement as he jogged up the steps to his Austin bungalow, the weight of a velvet box in his pocket pressing against his thigh. He'd left the Little League game early, realizing mid-practice he'd forgotten his wallet. The kids had cheered when he nailed a pop-fly demo, their grins fueling his plan to surprise Mia tonight. 5 years married, and he still got butterflies thinking about renewing their vows under the Texas stars. But as he pushed open the front door, the air felt wrong. Too still, too heavy. Mia was curled on the couch, her phone glowing in her hands. She laughed, a bright, unguarded sound Jake hadn't heard in months, the kind that used to light up their late-night talks. A half-empty glass, rimmed with her pink lipstick, sat on the coffee table. Jake froze in the hallway, the velvet box suddenly burning in his palm. Her laugh wasn't for him. He knew it instantly, like a punch he didn't see coming. She hadn't noticed him yet. Jake's fingers tightened around the box, his thumb tracing the soft edge. He'd spent weeks planning, a weekend getaway to the hill country, a sunrise proposal to recommit to fix whatever had been fraying between them. But now, her giggles spilled out again, tethered to some message on her screen. Jake's stomach churned. He wasn't funny anymore. Not to her. "Mia," he said, voice low, stepping into the living room. Her head snapped up, eyes wide for a split second. Fear, guilt, something raw, before a smile slid into place. "Too quick, too practiced. You're home early," she said, setting her phone face down. Her tone was light, but it carried an edge, like she was testing the air. "Forgot my wallet," Jake replied, his words clipped. He didn't move closer. The space between them felt like a canyon. Mia's fingers twitched toward her glass, then stopped. Silence stretched, sharp and suffocating, the kind that makes you hear your own pulse. Jake pulled the velvet box from his pocket, holding it like a grenade. He didn't plan to do this now, not like this, but his hand moved on its own, sliding the box across the coffee table. It stopped inches from her glass, the soft thud louder than it should have been. "Open it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia stared at the box, her breath catching. She didn't reach for it. Her eyes flicked to his, searching maybe for a way out. "Jake, what's this?" she asked, her voice smaller than usual. "Just open it," he repeated, leaning against the wall to steady himself. His heart hammered, but he kept his face blank, unwilling to give her anything more than he already had. She hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside, the ring gleamed, a simple band with a single diamond, the one he'd saved for, the one meant for a new promise. Mia's hand hovered, but she didn't touch it. She just stared, like it was something dangerous, something that could burn her. I can't," she whispered, her voice cracking. 3 words. They hit harder than a shout, sharper than any argument they'd ever had. Jake's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. He wanted to ask, who is he? How long? When did you stop loving me? But the questions lodged in his throat. Asking would mean admitting he'd lost her, and he wasn't ready for that truth. Instead, he nodded once, sharp, like he was agreeing to some unspoken deal. "Okay," he said, turning toward the door. His legs moved before his brain caught up, carrying him out of the house, away from the life he thought he knew. The front door clicked shut behind him, but he didn't look back. The Austin night was warm, the street lights buzzing softly, but his hand shook as he walked, the velvet box still in his pocket, now a weight he couldn't shake. He ended up at his brother Nate's apartment, a cramped loft downtown that smelled faintly of burnt coffee and gym bags. Nate opened the door, took one look at Jake's face, and stepped aside. No questions, just a nod and a hand on Jake's shoulder. "Crash as long as you need," Nate said, tossing him a spare blanket. Jake sank onto the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying Mia's laugh, her guilty glance, the ring she wouldn't touch. His phone buzzed in his pocket, twice, then 3 times. Mia's name lit up the screen. Texts, not calls. Always texts when she wanted to control the narrative. "We need to talk. Please, Jake." Then, "I didn't mean it like that." And finally, "Don't make this bigger than it is." The last one stung most. Bigger than it is? 6 years of marriage, of late-night tacos and shared playlists, reduced to a footnote in her life. He didn't reply. He couldn't. Not yet. Instead, he opened his laptop, the old one he kept at Nate's for emergencies. Something gnawed at him, an instinct that this wasn't just a betrayal, but something deeper, something planned. He logged into their shared cloud account, scrolling through folders labeled taxes and vacation pics. Then he saw it, a folder titled Work, one he didn't recognize. He clicked, and his breath caught. Screenshots. Dozens of them. Messages between Mia and someone named Ethan. Flirty, intimate, familiar. You make me feel alive again, she wrote. He's so distant lately, she said about Jake. But one message stopped him cold. He doesn't suspect a thing. We're clear for the weekend. The date was 2 weeks ago, when Mia claimed she was at a work conference in Houston. Jake's hands shook as he scrolled further. Buried in the folder was a file labeled J. He opened it, and his world tilted. It was a dossier on him, bank statements, his teaching schedule, even a high school nickname, J-Dog, that only his old football buddies knew. Whoever Ethan was, he wasn't just a fling. He was digging into Jake's life, collecting pieces like a hunter stalking prey. Jake slammed the laptop shut, his pulse racing. This wasn't just about Mia cheating. Ethan, whoever he was, knew too much, wanted too much. Jake didn't know why, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to sit back and let this stranger dismantle his life. He grabbed his phone, dialed his friend Lila, a cybersecurity whiz who'd helped him recover a hacked email once before. I need you, he said when she picked up. Someone's targeting me, and I need to know who. By midnight, Jake was at Lila's apartment, a cluttered space filled with monitors and empty energy drink cans. She didn't ask for details, just plugged his laptop into her system and started digging. This Ethan guy's careful, she said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. But he's not invisible. The metadata on those screenshots points to an IP address in Houston, a co-working space downtown. You want me to keep going? Jake nodded, his jaw tight. Find him. I need to know what he's after. As Lila worked, Jake stared at the velvet box on the table. The ring inside, now a symbol of everything he'd lost and everything he was about to fight for. This wasn't just about Mia anymore. It was about a shadow named Ethan, and whatever game he was playing, Jake was done being the pawn. Jake sat in Lila's dimly lit apartment, the hum of her computer fans filling the silence as she traced Ethan's digital trail. His phone buzzed again, Mia's name flashing with another text. Please, Jake, just talk to me. He ignored it, his focus locked on the screen where Lila pulled up a map pinpointing an IP address in Houston. This co-working space, she said, zooming in, is where Ethan's been logging in. The metadata from those screenshots ties to a public Wi-Fi network there. He's not as slick as he thinks. Jake leaned forward, his hands clenched. The dossier on him, bank records, teaching schedules, even that old J-Dog nickname, sat heavy in his mind. What kind of guy built a file like that on his girlfriend husband? He asked, voice tight. Lila's eyes didn't leave the screen. Someone with a plan? This isn't random. He's not just cheating with Mia. He's targeting you. The question is why. She opened a new tab, cross-referencing the IP with public records. Got a name tied to a lease at that co-working space. Ethan Carter. Mean anything to you? Jake shook his head. Never heard of him. But he knows things about me even Mia doesn't. Like my high school nickname. Nobody's called me that in 15 years. He paused, the weight of the velvet box still in his pocket, a reminder of the life he thought he had. Can you dig deeper? Find out who he really is? Lila nodded, cracking her knuckles. Already on it. Give me an hour. While she worked, Jake paced, replaying Mia's guilty glance, her refusal to touch the ring. He wanted to hate her, but the dossier shifted something. Ethan wasn't just a lover. He was a predator, and Mia might have been a pawn, not a player. The thought didn't erase the sting of her betrayal, but it gave him a new target. Lila's voice snapped him back. Bingo. Ethan Carter's a ghost. The name's tied to a P.O. box and a burner email, but I found a linked phone number. It pinged a tower near a bar in Houston last night. And she turned the monitor toward him. A grainy photo from a conference website showed a man in a suit, shaking hands at a marketing event Mia attended last fall in Denver. Recognize him? Jake squinted. The man's posture, the way he tilted his head, it matched the confidence in Mia's screenshots. That's him. That's the guy she's been texting. His stomach twisted. She said she met someone at that conference. Charming, freelance, not with her company. This must be where it started. Lila tapped the screen. He's not freelance. I cross-checked the conference attendee list. No Ethan Carter, but there's an Evan Mercer listed as a consultant. Same phone number. He's using an alias. She pulled up another file. Evan Mercer's got a thin digital footprint, but there's a record of him in public filings. His father, Arthur Mercer, was tied to a tech company your dad worked for before it tanked. Ring any bells? Jake froze. His father, Tom, had been a charismatic entrepreneur whose tech startup crashed in a storm of lawsuits and scandal when Jake was a teenager. Tom died in a car accident soon after, leaving Jake with a small trust fund and a pile of unanswered questions. My dad never talked about his partners, Jake said, but I know his company imploded over some encryption software deal. Could that be it? Lila's fingers flew across the keyboard. Looks like it. Arthur Mercer was a co-developer on a project with your dad. Court records say Tom filed for the patent solo, cut Arthur out, and won the rights. Arthur went bankrupt, had a breakdown, ended up in a state facility. Evan was a kid when it happened. She looked at Jake. If this is the same guy, he's got a grudge. And it's not against Mia, it's against you. Jake's pulse raced. So he seduces my wife, builds a file on me, and what? Tries to ruin my life because of something my dad did 20 years ago? He stood, running a hand through his hair. I need to find him. Now. Lila held up a hand. Hold on, cowboy. He's careful, but he's slipped up. That phone number? It's active, and I can track it. He's still in Houston, or was as of 6 hours ago. We could drive there, scope out that co-working space, maybe catch him in the act. But you need to stay sharp. This guy's playing a long game. Jake nodded, his resolve hardening. Let's go. He grabbed his keys, leaving the velvet box on Lila's table. It didn't belong in this fight. By dawn, they were on the road, the Texas sunrise bleeding orange across the highway. Jake's mind churned. Evan's messages to Mia, the dossier, the calculated betrayal. He wasn't just fighting for his marriage anymore. He was fighting for his life. They reached Houston by noon, parking across from the co-working space, a sleek glass building buzzing with freelancers and startups. Lila hacked into the building's public Wi-Fi log, confirming Evan's phone had connected an hour ago. He's here, she whispered, pointing to a man exiting the lobby. Jake's breath caught. It was him, tall, confident, carrying a briefcase. Evan Mercer glanced around, then slid into a black SUV. Jake's instinct was to chase, but Lila grabbed his arm. Not yet. We need proof. If he's this calculated, confronting him without evidence is suicide. She plugged her laptop into a portable hotspot, pulling up Evan's phone activity. He's been texting Mia. Look, the latest message, sent 10 minutes ago, read, tell him nothing. I'll handle Jake. Jake's blood ran cold. This wasn't just revenge, it was a setup. Let's tail him, Jake said, starting the car. They followed the SUV at a distance, weaving through Houston's lunch-hour traffic. Evan pulled into a crowded coffee shop parking lot, and Jake parked 2 rows back, watching as Evan stepped out, scanning the area like he knew he was being watched. He's paranoid, Lila muttered. Good. That means he's scared. Jake's phone buzzed again, Mia, this time a voicemail. He played it, keeping his eyes on Evan. Her voice was shaky. Jake, I found something in my email. Messages I didn't send. About you. I think Ethan's been hacking me. Please call. Jake's grip tightened on the wheel. Mia was in deeper than he thought, but he couldn't trust her yet. Not until he had answers. Lila handed him a USB drive. I've got his IP logs and the conference photo. If we can get more, we can nail him for fraud or worse. But we need to be smart. Jake nodded, his eyes locked on Evan, who was now sipping coffee at an outdoor table, typing on a laptop. The man who'd torn his life apart sat there like he owned the world. Jake wasn't running anymore. He was ready to fight back. Jake's heart pounded as he watched Evan Mercer sip coffee at the outdoor table, his laptop open, fingers tapping with casual arrogance. The Houston sun beat down, but Jake felt cold, his hands gripping the steering wheel of his parked car. Lila sat beside him, her laptop balanced on her knees, tracking Evan's phone signal. He's still connected to the coffee shop's Wi-Fi, she whispered. I'm pulling his recent activity. Give me a minute. Jake's phone buzzed again, Mia's name on the screen. Another voicemail. He ignored it, his focus locked on Evan, the man who'd woven himself into his marriage like a virus. The dossier, the flirty texts, the calculated lies, it all pointed to a vendetta tied to Jake's father, Tom, and a decades-old betrayal. Lila's research had uncovered Evan's real identity, the son of Arthur Mercer, a man ruined by Tom's ruthless business move. Now, Evan was after a trust fund only Jake could unlock. We can't just sit here, Jake said, his voice low but urgent. He's planning something. That message to Mia, I'll handle Jake. He's not done. Lila nodded, her screen flashing with data. Got something. He's been accessing a cloud server with encrypted files. Looks like more on you, tax records, even your old college transcripts. But there's a draft email here, unsent, addressed to a law firm. It mentions a trust fund clause in your name. Jake's stomach dropped. He's after the money. My dad set up that fund to quietly pay off Arthur's family, but it needs my signature to release the rest. That's why he's doing this. He glanced at Evan, who was now packing up his laptop. We need to confront him. Now. Lila grabbed his arm. Not without a plan. He's slippery. If we spook him, he'll disappear and we'll have nothing. She handed him a tiny recorder. Wear this. Get him talking. If he admits anything, we've got evidence. I'll stay close, streaming the audio to my laptop. Jake slipped the recorder into his pocket, his resolve hardening. He stepped out of the car, crossing the busy parking lot toward the coffee shop. Evan looked up as Jake approached, his posture stiffening, but a smirk curled his lips. Jake, he said, voice smooth like they were old friends. Didn't expect to see you here. Cut the act, Jake said, standing across from him. Evan Mercer, I know who you are. I know about your dad, the software deal, the trust fund. You used Mia to get to me. Why? Evan's smirk faltered, but he leaned back, unfazed. You're smarter than I thought. Yeah, I'm Evan. And your dad? He destroyed my family. Took everything. Our money, our name. That trust fund's mine by right, and you're the only thing standing in my way. Jake kept his voice steady, the recorder humming in his pocket. So you seduced my wife, hacked her email, built a file on me? All to force my hand? Evan laughed low and sharp. Mia was easy, lonely, insecure, desperate for attention you didn't give her. I just gave her a push. The file? Insurance. If you don't sign over the fund, I'll leak enough to ruin you. Fake emails, doctor photos, proof you're not the saintly teacher everyone thinks. Jake's fist clenched, but he didn't swing. You're admitting you framed me? Set up my marriage to fail? Evan leaned forward, voice dropping. I'm admitting I'm better at this than your dad ever was. Sign the papers, Jake, or I'll burn your life down. He slid a folder across the table. Legal documents with Jake's name and the trust fund details. Lila's voice crackled in Jake's earpiece. Got all. Keep him talking. Jake pushed the folder back. You're not getting a dime. I'm not my dad. I don't ruin people to win. Evan's eyes narrowed. Big mistake. He stood, grabbing his briefcase, and walked toward his SUV. Jake followed, heart racing, as Lila signaled she'd uploaded the recording to a secure server. Police can use this, she whispered as Jake caught up. Fraud, extortion, he's done. But Evan was already slipping into his car. Jake memorized the license plate as the SUV peeled out. Back in their car, Lila traced the plate to a rental company, confirming Evan was staying at a motel nearby. We've got enough to nail him, she said. But we need to move fast. He knows you're onto him. Jake's phone buzzed again, Mia. This time, he answered. Her voice was frantic. Jake, someone broke into the house. Your laptop's gone, and the drawer with our tax stuff is empty. I'm scared. Jake's grip tightened. Evan was escalating, erasing evidence, closing in on his goal. Stay somewhere safe, Jake told her. I'm handling it. He hung up, turning to Lila. He's not just after money. He wants me broken. We're going to that motel. Tonight. Jake's car hummed along the Houston highway, the motel's neon sign flickering in the distance. Lila sat beside him, her laptop open, tracking Evan Mercer's phone signal. The recorded confession from the coffee shop, Evan admitting to fraud and extortion, was already backed up and sent to a detective Lila knew at the Houston PD. They're working on a warrant, she said, her voice steady. But we need to catch him before he bolts. Jake's jaw tightened, his mind racing. Evan had broken into his Austin home, stolen his laptop, tax documents, and a photo from their hill country trip. A calculated move to erase Jake's past and tighten the noose. Mia's panicked voicemail still echoed. Your laptop's gone. I'm scared. Jake hadn't called her back. He couldn't. Not until he ended this. They pulled into the motel lot, a rundown strip of rooms off the interstate. Evan's black SUV was parked near the end, its rental plates matching the ones from the coffee shop. Jake parked 2 spaces away, scanning the lot. Room 17, Lila said, pointing to a door where a light glowed through thin curtains. His phone's still pinging here. Jake grabbed the recorder from his pocket, double-checking it was ready. If he's in there, we get more evidence. If he's not, we search for anything he left behind. Lila nodded, slipping a USB drive with hacking tools into her bag. I'll check for digital traces. You handle the door. They approached room 17, the hum of traffic masking their steps. Jake knocked, sharp and deliberate. No answer. He tried again, louder. Silence. Lila pulled out a small device, bypassing the electronic lock in seconds. The door clicked open, revealing a dark, empty room. Jake stepped inside, flipping on the light. No Evan, but signs of him were everywhere. Empty coffee cups, a half-packed duffel bag, a burner phone on the bed. Lila plugged her device into the motel's Wi-Fi, scanning for connected devices. He was here an hour ago, she said. Left in a hurry. His laptop still syncing to a cloud server. She opened a folder on her screen, revealing more files on Jake, bank logs, a forged hotel receipt from their anniversary weekend, even a fake email suggesting Jake was cheating. He's building a smear campaign, Lila said. If you don't sign over the trust fund, he'll leak this. Jake's stomach churned. The trust fund, set up by his late father, Tom, to quietly pay off Arthur Mercer's family, was Evan's real target. Jake's signature was the key, and Evan had used Mia, manipulated her with lies about Jake's infidelity, to destabilize him. Check that bag, Jake said, pointing to the duffel. Inside, he found a manila envelope with his name scrawled on it. He tore it open, a legal document outlining the trust fund, with a clause circled in red. Final release requires beneficiary authorization. Evan's plan was clear. Break Jake, force the signature. Lila's screen pinged. Got a hit. His phone's moving, headed toward Dallas. He's running. Jake's eyes narrowed. Then we follow. But first, we need that warrant. He called Lila's detective contact, relaying the motel findings and the recorded confession. The detective confirmed they'd flagged Evan's rental car and issued an APB. Stay out of it now, the detective warned. He's dangerous. Jake hung up, unconvinced. Evan wasn't just dangerous. He was personal. Back in the car, they sped toward Dallas, Lila tracking Evan's phone as it pinged along I-45. Jake's phone buzzed, Mia again. This time, he answered. Jake, thank God, she said, voice trembling. I found more emails. He's been logging into my accounts, sending messages to make it look like I'm hiding money. He's framing us both. Jake's grip tightened on the wheel. Did you tell him you found the files? Mia hesitated. I confronted him last night. Told him I'd tell you everything. He laughed, said it didn't matter, that he'd already won. Jake's blood ran cold. Stay with a friend, Mia. Don't go home. He hung up, his focus sharpening. Evan wasn't just after the trust fund. He was tying up loose ends. 3 hours later, they reached a gas station outside Dallas where Evan's phone had last pinged. The SUV was there, parked crookedly, but Evan was gone. Lila hacked into the station's security feed, spotting him on grainy footage entering a convenience store, then slipping out a back exit. He ditched the phone, she said, cursing. He knows we're close. Jake scanned the lot, spotting a receipt on the ground near the SUV. It was for a bus ticket to Rockville, Maryland, time-stamped an hour ago. He's heading east, Jake said. Why Maryland? Lila's eyes widened. Your dad's old lawyer, the one who set up the trust fund. He's in Rockville. Evan's going for the source. Jake's mind raced. The lawyer, Karen Holt, had handled Tom's settlement after his company collapsed. She'd know the trust fund's details and how to access it. Jake called her, explaining everything. Karen's voice was calm but firm. I've got the original documents locked down. But if Evan's desperate, he might try to forge your authorization. Send me the recording and files. I'll work with the police. Jake forwarded everything, his hands shaking. The fallout was spreading. Mia's hacked accounts, the stolen documents, Evan's escape. But Jake wasn't helpless anymore. He had evidence, allies, and a clear target. We're not done, he told Lila. We're going to Maryland. He's not getting away. Jake's eyes burned from the long drive to Rockville, Maryland, the dashboard clock ticking past midnight. Lila sat shotgun, her laptop glowing as she coordinated with Karen Holt, the lawyer who'd managed Jake's father's trust fund. Evan Mercer's trail had led them here, to the heart of the scheme that had unraveled Jake's marriage and life. The recorded confession, stolen documents, and Mia's hacked emails were now with the police, but Evan was still a ghost, last seen buying a bus ticket to Rockville. Jake gripped the wheel, determined to end this. They pulled into a quiet lot near Karen's office, a low brick building tucked behind a strip mall. Karen met them at the door, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness. "The police have your evidence," she said, ushering them inside. "Evan tried to submit a forged authorization for the trust fund this morning, using your name. I flagged it immediately." She slid a document across her desk. Jake's signature, perfectly mimicked, but on a form he'd never seen. "He's desperate," Karen added. "The fund's locked until you sign in person." Jake's stomach twisted. The trust fund, created by his late father, Tom, to quietly repay Arthur Mercer's family, was Evan's obsession. Evan had seduced Mia, built a dossier on Jake, and framed him to force his hand. Now he was cornered. "Where is he?" Jake asked. Karen handed him a USB drive. "This has the forged documents and his IP logs from when he tried to access the fund. The police tracked him to a motel 2 miles away. They're moving in, but you need to stay clear." Jake nodded, but his mind was racing. Evan wasn't just a thief. He was a predator who'd turned Mia into a pawn and Jake into a target. Lila's phone pinged. "Cops got him," she said, reading a message from her detective contact. "Arrested at the motel 10 minutes ago. Fraud, identity theft, and extortion charges. They found your stolen laptop and the Hill Country photo in his room." Jake exhaled, relief mixing with exhaustion. The photo, a snapshot of him and Mia laughing under Texas oaks, had been Evan's final taunt. Now as evidence, Jake and Lila drove to the police station, where an officer showed them Evan's confiscated belongings. Among them was a notebook with red ink scrawls. "Break him. Force the signature." Jake's name was circled, tied to his father's betrayal of Arthur Mercer 20 years ago. Evan's plan wasn't just about money. It was about revenge, making Jake suffer as his father had suffered. "He's done," the officer said. "He'll be behind bars for years." Back in Austin, Jake met Mia at a small cafe by Lake Travis. She sat across from him, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug, eyes red from crying. "I didn't know what he was doing," she said. "He lied to me, made me think you were cheating, hiding things. I'm so sorry, Jake." Her voice broke, but Jake stayed calm. "I know," he said, "but you let him in. You chose to believe him over me." Mia nodded, tears falling. "I'll never forgive myself." Jake leaned back, the weight of the past weeks lifting slightly. "I forgive you," he said, not for her, but to free himself. "But we're done." He stood, leaving her at the table, the finality of it settling in his chest. He didn't hate her. He just couldn't carry her betrayal anymore. The next day, Jake met with Karen remotely to restructure the trust fund. He donated half to a foundation in Arthur Mercer's name, supporting families hit by corporate fraud, a public gesture to right his father's wrong. The rest went to a local education charity in Austin, ensuring Evan could never touch it. Karen filed the paperwork, sealing the fund's new purpose. Jake moved to a small town outside San Antonio, renting a modest apartment near a high school where he taught history again. He started coaching Little League on weekends, the kids' cheers a quiet bomb. One Saturday, at a street fair, he saw a boy struggling with a paper kite, its string tangled. Jake knelt beside him, showing him how to adjust the frame. They launched it together, the kite soaring against a clear sky. Jake smiled, the ache in his chest softening. Evan's trial came quickly. Jake didn't attend, but read the headlines. Guilty on all charges, sentenced to 7 years. The foundation in Arthur's name made news, a small redemption for a family torn apart. Jake didn't dwell on it. He picked up photography, capturing honest moments, a kid's grin, a sunset over the hills. He wasn't broken. He was rebuilding, one truthful step at a time.